with their Corsican partners in France. The informant said the entire brownstone was full of cash, millions of dollars in small bills. A massive load of 400 kilos fresh from the labs in Marseille, costing probably $4 million wholesale and worth $250 million when it hit the streets, was in the works. Believe it or not, the heroin was smuggled across the Atlantic from France to New York using underwater mines, once used by the Nazis to protect the coastline from Allied invasion in World War II.
We had given $1 million to a friend to hold, and disappeared again. So when the gentleman sees him again, he say, "Frank, when you gonna come get that money?" And Frank goes, "What money?" He says, "Yo, man, you remember you gave me those shopping bags, that money?" He said, "I'll come get it in a week or so." So, how much money does he have?
We interviewed some informants. We rushed through an indictment, the first indictment before the superseding indictments, and we had Matthews indicted.
I should be upset right now. 1 second I'm on my bike, and the next I'm laying it down, praying I don't get chewed up. Now to ride in the ambulance, missed work, physical therapy, and dealing with insurance companies. I should be upset, but Goldberg and Osborne takes you under its wing. They handle it all. Finding doctors, managing medical bills, and getting the most money possible. It'll be easy. I call 1-800-THE EAGLE for a free case review. I should be upset, but I've got Goldberg and Osborne.
After any accident, go with Goldberg and Osborne. 1-800-THE EAGLE.
The whole turning people to stone thing killed Medusa's social life. So she ordered sunglasses with Prime one-day delivery.
Hey, yo, I've been on. You been con.
Clever girl.
Fendi prints on.
Prime changed everything.
Teaching him to ride a bike? That's parenting 101. But Mom, get green light and teach him what it takes to buy a bike. Nice shot. Crushing chores, getting paid, and buying a cool bike. Then teach him how to buy stock in a bike company. Teach him how to be smart about money, and he'll go far.
Super far. Oh, hey, Mom.
Navigate the world of money together. Invest in your best investment. Greenlight.
Huh. So if Geico's 85, that makes you... Are you asking if I'm 85 years old? Sea turtles live to be 150, so... No, I was not.
Geico, saving people money for 85 years.
Mr. Brown, we're wondering why you haven't sued or taken some other action. I think if these stories had been written about me, I would be denying them to the nth degree.
Well, we denied it already, and like I say, we have to let our lawyers handle the legal matter through the courts.
Courtney Brown Sr. didn't get involved in selling drugs until he was 30 years old. He was actually a steward for the Detroit City Bus Workers Union, which was probably the ceiling of achievement for most black males in America circa 1970, unless you got in the drug business.
He knew we're driving the bus and stay playing the union game where that was going to lead. And it would eventually led to a nice house, maybe one day on the northwest side of Detroit, and a decent pension. The kind of money that Eddie was already making, it became obvious that if he got involved with him, he was going to have an opportunity to set himself up and put his family in a whole different situation that very few will ever get to know. And that did happen.
Eddie would rank in the top 5 across the country, and from 71 all the way up to 75 till he got violated. I would say Frank Matthews, beyond a shadow of a doubt, was number 1. There's only was 2 or 3 people that Italians, black, were dealing with. Eddie was one, Frank Matthews.
With the introduction of drugs, large amounts of drugs into the United States, came an economy, an underground economy.
A river of money is flowing because business is so good. Everybody knows everybody. Turning your money like you're supposed to, or you're paying cash for what you're doing, you have a good life.
In 70, 71, heroin was endemic. Entire blocks in Brooklyn, the entire apartment houses were addicted, and small $10 packages of heroin was being used.
We had a mandate to go after these guys. So the politicians made a lot of noise, the media focused on that, which forced law enforcement to go after those guys that were dealing heroin.
And I decided to leave Compton Police Department and went with an agency called the Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs. I put in an application. I wanted to make a difference. I saw the country going to hell in a basket, to say. I saw people just destroying their lives. I saw heroin addicts.
Kids who their parents had struggled and marched and wanted to make sure that they were extremely successful and to go as far as their talents could take them, suddenly got involved in drugs. And the drug was heroin. So it was just destroying the African American community.
In 1972, Agent Sutton, one of the DEA's first black undercover agents, was sent to Detroit. Agent Sutton arrived in a Detroit that was simultaneously the murder capital of the country and one of the most affluent metropolitan areas in the entire United States. For many African Americans, Detroit was truly the promised land of opportunity.
We had a lot of black lawyers, doctors, both male and females. They had black law firms here, and they had politicians.
To all dope pushers, to all rip-off artists, to all mothers, hit the road.
I saw a kind of a black influence that I had never seen in other cities like Los Angeles, Chicago, and places.
Some people in the black community, like Eddie Jackson in Detroit, were finding their economic empowerment through heroin.
Mr. Jackson, it's alleged that just 6 years ago you were earning a little better than $3 an hour as an auto production worker. Just how did you come to acquire this home in Southfield and your other business interests, your automobiles?
Well, I think the law states, that you have to file your income. If I tell you that, then you know my secrets, But as long as I file my income, and I think this is what the law states, and I do that.
What he understood was people. He understood that this was Motown. It was an automotive city, that you work 5 days a week and that you should get 2 days off a week. And he understood that that's what people's perception of a job was. And back then, if Chrysler was paying me $300 a week, if I say I'll pay you $600 a week for the same 40 hours of work, he understood that these guys would get that, right? So you'll pay me twice what the plant pays me, and I'll work the same 40 hours. And he just put it and organized in the early days when he was in the retail end of it. He just organized the retail operation just like they were working at the plant. And it really worked. My dad got up at 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning every day that I can remember, particularly when he was involved in the underworld.
You're under constant surveillance. There have been all kinds of stories about your alleged connections with the underworld drug market. What's your reaction, Mr. Jackson?
Well, as far as the connection, that's 100% false. And as far as the surveillance, I welcome, anybody who feel like they want to waste their time watching me, well, then they can...
Again, the question, how could a man at the age of 29, who just 6 years ago was earning something like $6,000 a year, acquire so much in so short a time?
Well, I think you asked me before about I worked in the pool room. I want to straighten that out. I own the pool room. Also, the block proceeded to that, And from that and manipulating, and I just came, fortunately, and came up to this.
Yeah, I believe in 1973, Eddie Jackson paid more Michigan and federal taxes than Atlantic Richfield, maybe Mobil Oil or Shell Oil, and another Fortune 100 company.
Mr. Brown and Mr. Jackson have paid better than $450,000 in income tax. I think that's more than some of the corporations, Shell, Atlantic Richfield, and a few of the others. Now, for Mr. Leff, who's in charge of the task force to try this case in the newspaper and get the public sentiment against these two gentlemen, I think that's reprehensible.
We're ready to burn it all down or blow it up, if that's what it takes, and ourselves with it. We've had it with Whiting. We want ours now.
And what does Whitey have to say about violence, rioting, and looting?
Okay, so they've got a gripe. But I say these riots were started by juvenile delinquents so they could loot.
For how long can you expect Negroes to see how great it is to live in America on their television sets and in the movies without them seeing how different their own lives are?
The thing that bothers me about this whole situation is there are so many Negroes that hate the white people. That's not right. It's just as wrong as the white people hate the Negroes.
African-American parents, my parents, marched with Dr. King, and the drug guys were pushing heroin, but they're selling a substance that's going to kill your child or your grandchild.
You know, the term drug pusher is such a ridiculous phrase. No one makes people use drugs. You know, I can't speak about Pookie and Ray Ray struggling to get $10. But from the world we came from, the last thing you needed or wanted was someone who never was involved in drugs to start using it. Try this, get involved in this. It just, you know, a lot of that is just propaganda, man.
Black power was for equality for African Americans. Black gangsters are committing illegal crimes. They're destroying the community. You really want to know who the heroes are. And the heroes are, I'd like to say, is my generation, the first generation of agents with DEA, and especially as African-American agents who worked undercover. That's how you made your bones in the 70s.
I was sent here to do a police officer who apparently worked narcotics and had gone into the dope dealing business by the name of Marzette.
Henry Marzette was a Detroit narcotics officer who turned to the dark side and started selling dope himself. After his release from prison around 1960, he started getting dope from the Italians and quickly rose to the top of Detroit's drug business.
I was given money as a young man on Washington Boulevard by Henry Marzette, and he gave me money for school, and that's what he said. The money wasn't for me to go and get clever in an Italian knit. He gave me that money, and he said, and I expect for you to go and use this for school and nothing else.
In the summer of 1970, Henry Marzette had decided to take over Detroit's drug business. He called a meeting of the city's top dealers and told them that he had secured a direct Asian source of supply and that he could guarantee 20 pounds a week of pure China white, enough to supply most of the city.
We always had the African Americans involved in the distribution of drugs throughout the inner cities. And in the 70s, it's when African Americans were becoming more prominent in business. The drug dealers wanted to do the same thing. And it just made business sense from their perspective to cut out the middleman, which would have been the Italian mafia, and go right to the source and import heroin and control the distribution.
With his chief hitman, Jimmy Moody, standing behind him, Marzette proposed that each dealer put up $50,000 in advance and that he'd provide the dope and police protection. Not everybody was willing to work for Henry Marzette, though. Angry words soon led to dead bodies on the street, and things quickly got out of control. A war between Marzette's allies, known as the West Side 12, against dealers loyal to the Italian mafia, known as the East Side 7, led to 200 dead bodies. Jimmy Moody himself supposedly killed 15 people between Christmas of 1970 and July of 1971. In April of 1972, Henry Marzette died at home from kidney failure. On his deathbed, the head of the state of Michigan's Organized Crime Division, an old colleague of Marzette from his days as a Detroit undercover narcotics cop, showed up and asked him to stop the drug war. Henry Marzette did this by having his chief hitman, Jimmy Moody, killed. Moody was found in the trunk of his Eldorado at Detroit Metropolitan Airport.
The day I arrived in Detroit, I was shown two bodies that had been placed inside of the trunk of cars at the Detroit Metropolitan Airport. And the stench, the bodies were decomposed and you could see the maggots.
With Henry Marzette gone, John Sutton's next target was Denard Devil Jackson, a business partner of Courtney Brown Jr.'s father.
Within a day of arriving in Detroit,